You're in the rant wormhole where I rant about whatever my $15 a month plus patrons ask me to rant about. You can get one by being one. Today's rant comes at the request of Kenneth Crayley telling me to rant about King Crimson. King Crimson is a seminal prog rock band from England. When I think prog rock, I basically think King Crimson. They were a 70s band that has been like a chief influence for most of my favorite bands growing up. You know, I was big into Tool and the Mars Volta. They both had that cited as an influence on their Wikipedia pages, you know, so I had an older cousin who had gotten me into lots of prog and weird music who had a bunch of their albums burned onto, just burned onto CDs that he had got. He would just download like music en masse and then put it on CDs and listen to it in his car. And I burned all those CDs onto my computer. So, I had some of their classic albums like Red and In the Court of the Crimson King and fucking Starless and Bible Black. That's where the anime Bible Black gets its fucking title from. It's from King Crimson. They also are, referenced in JoJo, Boogie Pop. I think I probably had read Boogie Pop before I discovered King Crimson, and then when I found out that they had, that they were referenced in there, I was like, oh shit, because the Fire Witch Nagi is named after the lyric where they say to summon back the Fire Witch to the court of the Crimson King on their first album. Which you probably, if you're watching this, you don't know who King Crimson is. You might know them best for 21st Century Schizoid Man, famously sampled in the song Power by Kanye West. It was in one of the Rock Band or Guitar Hero games. Great fucking song. Great fucking album. I've always been a huge fan of the song Moonchild off of that album because King Crimson was doing the weirdest shit of anyone ever in like as early as the 70s. Like their music is a lot weirder and heavier and more freakish than anything else that was coming out at the time. Like they would go into long, extensive like jazz passages because they're essentially a jazz fusion band, but like with mostly like focus on rock instrumentation. Like there just happens to be guitar playing in all of their stuff. That's that's front forward and why the fuck? What the hell phrase is front forward? What the fuck does that mean? I just mean to say that there was guitars at the forefront of their music, So their first album, you could think of it as like a rock album and definitely a prog album, but like it's got a lot of slow parts and a lot of weird experimental shit, where in the song Moonchild, it already starts off as like a very soft, lilting track, mostly played on string instruments, I think. But then it just goes off into like 10 minutes of extremely minimal experimentation where like you're just hearing like improvised banging and clanging in the background of a studio basically. Like it's just a weird frittering like it feels like schizophrenic thoughts, and like it fits the imagery of the early part of the song really well. It's just such a mysterious and cool fucking song. When you listen to a King Crimson album for the first time, not knowing what to expect, you absolutely get lost in that motherfucker. You're just like, where am I? At certain points in listening to the albums. But the more you do listen to it, the more you find that there is some kind of structure and logic behind it, and that keeps it entertaining. But, like, whereas their early albums were more angled towards that, like, the intense amount of improvisation and experimentation and like the longer tracks, there was an era where they were putting out stuff that was more just like a little bit more fucking formulated, like not even to any degree where you would consider it to be traditional, but like stuff like the albums Beat and Discipline have more like structure to them and more like memorable hooks and just like not quite as like going off into the fucking weeds of experimentation. It feels like every song was put together, and then like there's obviously improvised solos and shit, but like it's not nearly the extent of other albums. I really like that stuff. like Beat and Discipline are probably like my two favorite King Crimson albums. Um, Beat is just like this really cool nightlife New York like type of like, you know, it's about beat poetry and like just the whole vibe of like that crazy beatnik shit, you know. Um, and then you've got Discipline, which meanwhile is about like crime in the streets of New York, because the band had like come to visit New York, and like they just thought it, to them it seemed like a dizzying crazy jungle, you know, which I mean it was in the 80s when New York was like infamously pretty fucking crazy. So like yeah, that's a fucking great album with some interesting weird songs like Mate Kudasai. But like I don't listen to as much of like say In the Wake of Poseidon or like their earlier more improvisational albums. But I do like Red and Starless and Bible Black, which are like more of a combination of more formulated songs and more experimental songs, where like, you know, one track might have a full chorus and everything, and then the next song might be fucking like literally 11 minutes of just weird tinkering that occasionally culminates into like an epic moment, almost post rock ish in a way. You know, I'm sure that genre took some influence from there. Um, so yeah, I guess I would say I'm a big fan of King Crimson in general, even if I don't love all of their albums or all their music. I don't follow everything Robert Fripp does, but I will, just to make this a proper rant on some level, talk about how they don't let any of their fucking shit online at all. Like, much in the same way that Prince was infamous for, and like once he died, I think they put all his shit on Spotify and shit. But like King Crimson heavily polices their copyrights, so like they haven't put their shit up on Spotify. They take everything down off of YouTube that gets uploaded. It's difficult to find their music to actually download, and like if you want to buy the fucking albums, they're expensive as shit. Like most of them have had to be reissued. They're imports, you know. So like you're gonna pay a whole lot of money for some fucking old shit that they already made their money on ages ago, that they could eat. They, you know, I don't think Robert Fripp is hurting for cash. I understand protecting your fucking your art, but like just make it available to new people in some way. You're like, how the fuck is anybody even gonna get into King Crimson anymore if I can't link them any songs or albums or anything for them to listen to get a taste of the band? Like, I found out about them. I own some of their albums, you know, like I've paid money for King Crimson music after having discovered them because my cousin had downloaded MP3s of their music and burned it onto CDs, and I had burned those onto my computer. Like, you know, you need some way to be accessible to new fans, and when your music is ancient and has been off the radio for a long time, how the fuck is that going to happen, you know? I don't really understand what their business strategy is, if they even have one. If the point is just to hoard the shit, I don't know. But like, if you want to find King Crimson music, you know, to listen to for free, like you got to search on Dailymotion. You got to search for an album title, and you got to search Dailymotion, and you might get it. That's how I listen to Beat, because I don't have it downloaded somehow. Yeah, that's annoying, but otherwise, great fucking band.